Woman of Culture 365 presents The Mia Allman Show, hosted by yours truly, Coach Mia, a certified master life coach, health advocate, self-empowerment educator, who's sharing an in-depth conversation on how to master self, important issues that affect our mental wellness, health and wellness tips, to embracing and celebrating our cultural heritage, and much more. And now, here's Coach Mia. Hi, I'm Coach Mia, and welcome to the Mia Allman Show. I will be your moderator for this special 3-part series entitled The Choice to Live. It's about warriors of hope and wellness on mental health awareness, brought to you by Ribbons of Survivors 365. The choice to live is very personal to me, not just because May is National Mental Health Awareness Month, or to raise awareness about this silent killer, mental illness. Not only has mental challenges affected some of my close friends, associates, and family members, I too face mental challenges, so much that I considered suicide. Why? Because of depression and anxiety, which pushed me to the very edge of abyss. However, after experiencing the moment of truth, I choose to live. It's our hope that through sharing the testimonies of 4 amazing women, as well as my own story, we can be an assistance to others confronting the silent killer, mental illness. We hope to provide a voice to the voiceless victims, help troubled individuals and their families intervene before the point of no return, and offer a reason to choose life. On today's first episode is entitled Suicide, The Road Not Taken. It tells a story of 2 extraordinary women who have faced the challenge of suicide and choose to live. Why and what the message they have for all of us. I would like to mention that May is also Lupus Awareness Month, and I would like to recognize our 2019 Ribbons of Survivors 365 Lupus Ambassador, Josan Battle, and our 2021 Ribbons of Survivors 365 Lupus Ambassador, Esther Charleston, who continue to raise awareness about lupus in their community. I would also like to remind you to like and subscribe on our YouTube channel at Glow 365 TV shows. There you can watch all our current and previous shows. Let's take a quick break, and when we return, I will introduce the co-host for this evening's show. We'll be back in 60 seconds. Hey, this is Coach Mia, asking you to join the conversation on Glow 365 TV for Holistic Health, hosted by Coach Dawn Hewitt, a certified holistic health coach and health advocate who focuses on how to treat the whole body through traditional medicine, the benefits of herbs, and eating a nutritional diet, and an in-depth conversation on how to maintain physical wellness and so much more. Join us as we go live on Facebook and YouTube at Glow 365 TV shows every second Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time as we talk about the mind, body, and soul. This show is executive produced by Glow 365 TV and powered by KUOmagazine.com and Quayle Works Empowerment Broadcast Network. All rights reserved. 2023. Welcome back. Let me introduce our host
who are no strangers to this special show. Two are esteemed, straight talking, and self empowerment educators. First is Leonard Birch, a soul therapist, a psycho-spiritual coach, consultant, and author of the book Dis-Ease is the Cure, Dean of Quayle Works, and advisory, producer, and assistant writer for Glow 365 TV and also all of KU Magazine TV shows. Lenny, welcome back. And next, we have Sophia Green, and we all know her as Sophie G. She is a certified life coach, relationship coach, producer, and host of the Sophie G radio show, and co host, assistant writer, producer of the Glow 365 TV and also KU Magazine special shows. Welcome back, Sophie.
Brother Lenny.
Lenny, you have the first story, and I will see you both on the other side.
Well, thank you. Uh, as you all may be aware, May is National Mental Health Awareness Month. It is dedicated to raising awareness and educating the public about mental illness, the realities of living with related conditions, and strategies for sustaining mental health and wellness. Mental disorders are among the leading causes of disability and ill health around the world, and it affects so many people. Reportedly, it impacts up to 1 in 5 people globally. 90% of those who die by suicide are said to have an underlying mental illness. Depression is twice as likely to occur in people with heart disease compared with the general population. Women are more likely to seek help than men. And although there are various mental health treatments available, sadly, almost two-thirds never seek help. And that's not all. Sophie, what else do we know about this?
Yes, Lenny, we know that 1 in 5 in the United States alone suffers from mental illness. Anxiety disorder is also the highest reported mental health issue in the country, with 42.5 million Americans claiming to suffer from mental illness. Such illnesses start showing symptoms by age 14. That's reported. And in just this year alone, 2022, there's been several celebrities who've had committed suicide, and celebrities like Naomi Judd, rapper Ricky Lick, and also Miss USA, Chelsea. So just to name a few,
All right.
many.
Well, statistics are one thing, and the real stories are another.
Yeah.
Let's take a quick break, and when we return, Sophie, we want you to introduce our special guest, who is one who has attempted suicide. Back in 60 seconds.
Hey, it's your girl, Coach Lady Mia, inviting you to check out some shows on Glow 365 TV, starting with yours truly, The Mia Almond Show, Holistic Health Show with Coach Dawn, Sisters of Faith with Coach Lady Q, and The Sophie G Show with Coach Sophie G. Streaming on YouTube at Glow 365 TV shows every Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Also, rebroadcast on Caribbean Rhythms Radio online at crrnetworkinc.com every Thursdays at 7 p.m. Eastern Time.
Well, I just want to take this time, as you mentioned before, if you're just joining us, I just want to, first of all, before we go any further, remind or let this audience who are, watching right about now, just to give you a heads up that it is a very, very sensitive topic. This series is a very sensitive series we're going to be presenting to you. So we're going to just give you a heads up that if you have young ones in the room or minors, viewers' discretion is advised. So, because we're going to be having some really deep, adult, sensitive conversations. So it may not be suitable for some ears. As you mentioned before, I want to say welcome to somebody who's very special to this platform. She's one of our sisters on the Glow 365 team, and her name is Coach Dawn Hewitt. She's a certified holistic health coach. She's host and producer as well to Glow 365 TV show. She's a traditional medicine journalist for KUO Magazine and a broadcast journalist for KUO Magazine. Also, she's on the Andrea Jackson radio show, Star, right here in Orlando, Florida. And I want to say, welcome, 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 Sister Dawn. I know this is going to
Thank
be a
you.
very tough topic for you. And I know I'm just going to jump right into it. I'm going to ask you to just, while we're listening and we're paused and ready to absorb this very sensitive subject, I'm going to ask you to just take us as you share your story with us, as far back as you can possibly go. How did your mental health story begin? How did it start for you?
So I can recall at age 5, that's the year that I was 5 years old, I just became aware of so many things in my environment that wasn't right, that made me that were really hurtful and made me scared, and made me have thoughts of, not wanting to exist in such a space. When I there was, I was bullied at school because I was taller than everybody else, and I had a speech impediment. I was a stutterer, and I had a really bad lisp, and on top of that, I had a really thick Jamaican accent, which my I had a teacher who thought that my accent was the speech impediment. So anyway, I was constantly being told that I wasn't speaking English, and you know, the stutter was a result of being fearful of everything.
Wow.
But I mean, also it was like a physical problem as well. And then at 5 years old, a family member in the home was a few days away from giving birth to a baby, and another family member threw her to the ground in front of us kids and proceeded to bite her and kick her in her stomach and private parts so that she would miscarry. And, we had spent a lot of time looking at her belly, seeing the baby's feet pressing as if he was just ready to come out. And those were some of the most pleasant moments at home for us. And then, here we are, three little girls trying to stop this person from this physical assault, and just wondering like what was going to happen to the baby, and the woman who was being abused. It was just very, very shocking. And I just remember at that moment just the awareness of just like, this is appalling. This behavior is so outrageous that
Can you
this
tell
is
us
this
how
is
old?
not normal.
Can you tell? I'm
Mhm.
sorry. Can you tell us how old you were at that time? What?
Yeah, I was 5 years old.
And you recall that?
Yes, and I know that for a fact because my birthday was on December 11th, and the baby was born on December 17th. So it was
Mm,
somewhere my birthday had passed. So it was in those days before the baby was born.
that's amazing. And at such a tender age, 5,
Yeah.
you're able to
Yes.
recall such a vivid tragedy, pretty much.
Yeah.
Did the baby? Okay, so the baby survived. Wow.
Yes. Yes.
Um,
The baby did survive, but there, have been a lot of the person has had a lot of issues throughout their life.
So that was age 5. And then
Yeah.
when did you realize that you personally, with all that took place, and I'm sure many, many more, which, you know, I'd love for you to be, you know, be vulnerable, just share for all who are listening right now, who may be going through something in their home. What became of that situation, and where did you go from there?
The situation,
for you, that is.
The situation for me was, in a lot of ways, it continued to go downhill. You know, for me, in my mind, I think the domestic violence, which is something that you generally think of as happening between the adults in the home, and then child abuse, they intersect. And then, so, you know, the child abuse and the emotional neglect was very profound. I had issues with eating. I was a nervous eater, and I used to pick at my food, and so in the mornings, you know, one of the adults in the home would be constantly late to work because I couldn't swallow, I couldn't finish my food. And I just remember things like a serving spoon being pushed down my throat, or, you know, to the back of my mouth, and you know, being backed in the corner with a metal spatula, which right at the moment I did like this, and the spatula split my wrist open, but that would have been my eye if I hadn't have moved quickly enough. And then having to walk at 6 or 7 by myself to the clinic down the street, and them asking me, you guys, you know, because I told them I fell, they said, you guys fall a lot at your house. And I just remember hearing that shocking statement. Well, what really happened to me, I had 2 teachers, 2 Jewish ladies in the public school system in New York, who saw me and questioned what was going on with me. And I think it was just their compassion that did a lot for me. And I was really close to one of my sisters, and she was very, very protective of me, despite the fact that she was going through a lot more even than me.
So, you know, I know you shared with us prior to this that at a very tender age is when you really realized that home was not feeling safe for you.
Yes.
And and you realized that it was unsafe for your mental wellness.
Yes.
Can you remember when it was, or what was it exactly that, because, you know, you've been through a lot, and I know this is just like touching on just a bit of it, because it's a 60-second show, 60-minute show. And but I want to know, let me ask you something. In spite of everything you've gone through, I'm going to ask you shortly to let us know what it is that took you to the point where you thought that you were contemplating walking down the road, journey down the road not taken. All right.
Well, yes. Thank you for that question.
Before you answer that, just take a real quick break.
Sure.
And then we come back and you give us that.
Hello and welcome. My name is Ronnie Walker. Allow me to introduce you to the MrRelationshipManCave.com website. Listen, gentlemen, today is not the day to show up halfway for yourself and for the woman you aim to please. Nutrition and mental health are important to fully experience a healthy and exceptional relationship. As a man, we want to make sure we have what is needed to start and finish strong. So go to www.MrRelationshipManCave.com and explore the possibilities.
Welcome back. Before the break, we were talking with Dawn Hewitt, Coach Dawn Hewitt, who she's sharing her story with us in this month, where we're highlighting mental wellness and mental illness and how to stay on the right path. This special series is about a 3-part series, which has to do with suicide, because there's so much that takes place in our community, in our lives, in next door. Dawn, before the break, I had asked you to share with us. You mentioned that at a very vulnerable age of 5, you witnessed, which was really tragic for a 5-year-old to experience. And you were bullied. I didn't even know that you stuttered. Had no clue prior to, nobody would never know. But I want you to walk us through the journey down that road as to what caused you, what led you to thinking and feeling as if you wanted to journey down the dark alley of suicide.
I think that what happened. Hello.
Are you back?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
I know you contemplated going down the dark journey, the dark alley.
Yeah.
Can you share with us what led you to that? To the road
Sure.
not taken?
Yes, absolutely. I think that it goes back to those tender years, where I just would question what good was living, in this environment. So that was a precedent that had been set back then, where I would when I would get into terrible situations, I would often consider, like, is this life worth living? What is tomorrow gonna be like? Is it going to be worse, or and so in the about a year and a half ago, my cousin, my lovely, lovely cousin Andrew, passed away, and that was extremely devastating. It was on Christmas Day, and when we got the news, when we were putting the dinner on the table, or when we were cooking or something, and it shook me to the core. And when I laid down to sleep that night, I just could not stop just these dark negative thoughts that were coming. Like, learning of his passing had triggered this whole entire episode of just thinking, like, life is really terrible. It's painful. It's unpredictable. It's unfair. If this could happen to somebody like Andrew, what is the sense of just suffering through this, and just having flashbacks of all of the terrible things from childhood, being sexually assaulted, being molested, being bullied, all that stuff. Just the disappointments of having people in your life who have tried to sabotage you, and all those types of things. And so I started to have those thoughts really, really, from the back of my mind, they came to the front of my mind. Like, I don't want to live, but I did want to live. But it was just like a sneaky thought that was like, it almost came out of nowhere. I mean, you could understand that the circumstances were very difficult, but I would feel like the thought was just kind of hitting me from left field, because I knew that I did have a lot to live for. And so one night I reached out to a friend of mine, but it was 1 a.m., so the phone rang a few times, and I hung up before she picked up, because I remembered she had to go to work in the morning. So I ended up calling the suicide prevention hotline. But while I was on hold with them, my friend Rebecca did call me back, and we talked for hours, and she let me vent and just cry all over her, and gave me a lot of hope. and that was a very important moment for me.
Did you ever share with her or anyone that you thought you had these thoughts before, or did you ever seek professional counseling or assistance?
Oh yeah, yes, I have. I've actually had counseling many times. Um, in my 20s, I left, and then there was a long time that I didn't, and then I started back again in my 40s, and then this most recent time has been since 2019 up till now. I'm getting therapy, and yes, so thank God for the people at the company's called Brave Health, the providers, and my therapist and my psychiatrist have been pivotal. They've been wonderful. So yes,
Let
I
me ask you.
highly recommend counseling.
Awesome. Let me ask you a quick question.
Sure.
After going through that and getting to down that alley, here's a question. I want to know, what was your moment of truth? What was it that prevented you from attempting suicide, from actually doing something to cause yourself to exit this world? What was it that your moment of truth that pulled you back?
Well, the reason why I reached out for help that night at 1 a.m. was because there's things that I want to accomplish. I want to leave a mark in this world. I'm working on a book, I'm writing for KUO magazine, and contributing to this show, which made me just think about the friendships that I have that are wonderful, and nourishing to my soul. And I just wanted to stick around to continue to experience those good things.
Wow. So right there, you did a temperature check. That was
Oh
your
yeah.
temperature check. Well, I'm
Yeah.
glad. I'm glad on behalf of the rest of us that you took time to check your temperature.
Thank you.
I want to say thank you so much for sharing your story. And there's so much more to come, because there's so much more that we're going to be talking about through this season, because there's so much more we have to go over. I know that you've transitioned, and I want you to tell me, with even the persons that you've confided in, like the friend that you called at that time of the night, how has it been your relationship with the person that you shared it with? I mean, do you feel like, is it a supportive kind of a network, or is it like, where are they constantly like looking over your shoulder? Do you feel like you're being constantly monitored? How's that?
She is so wonderful, and she continues to be a support, a shoulder. She calls me, throughout the day to check on me, and the other day I had a really bad day a couple of days ago, and she was there. It's almost like I'm on her radar. She reaches out to me a lot right when I need her, and she has actively, like, just takes time to ask probing questions so that she understands more. And I absolutely adore her. She's wonderful.
Amazing. So would you say it's become more manageable in the way
Yes,
you
yes.
cope? Well, Dawn, you know what? You've come a really long way. I know there's so much, you have so much depth to you and so much more that I'm sure you will, will piggyback into throughout the rest of the season and this month special series. Share with us real quickly what you've learned in your relationship with mental health, and how and the wellness, and how you've transitioned it into your awareness. I know you're also a Graves' disease awareness spokesperson. How do you compare them both real quick, and how has that impacted you, and how do you incorporate it?
When I was diagnosed with Graves' disease in 2017, I started researching it, and one of the things that just shocked me to see in the symptoms are a lot of them are emotional, and it has a profound effect on your mental health, because your thyroid, which is what is sick with Graves when you have Graves' disease. Your thyroid is connected to the pituitary gland in your brain, and it just is like kind of like a master circuit for a lot of your body systems, including emotional, mental, as I mentioned. And so I understand now that seeking, going out to seek relief for my physical symptoms is also benefiting my mental and emotional health. So for anybody out there who's suffering with an overactive thyroid, um, and you also have depression, anxiety, etc., it's not a coincidence. They are most likely one and the same.
Interesting, interesting. You've come so far, and please continue to stay on the journey of wellness, Dawn. I know we're going to share more coming up later on, as I said before. But, I wanted to thank you, thank you, thank you. Keep it up. Keep on doing what you're doing, and just keep on pushing through, sister. And remember your purpose as to why you actually did your temperature check. Coming up next, we're going to be taking a real quick break, but please do not go. Remember, if you know somebody who's suffering with mental illness or who's seem like they're depressed, please have them log on to watch this show. They're not alone. We're going to be hearing another very, very touching story, a very moving story coming up with the next guest on the opposite side of this 30 seconds. We're going to be talking with Ruby Mabris. She's going to share her personal journey with us on having suicidal thoughts, and she's now an advocate for mental health. She's going to be joining us after this 30 seconds. Stick around.
Join the conversation on Living the Life You Love, hosted by founder, executive producer, and host Catherine Murray Love, bringing you a monthly talk show that takes you on a journey of exclusive interviews from individuals who share their passion as business entrepreneurs, a community leaders, an advocate to raise awareness on how they found purpose in being successful and living the life they love. Streaming live on Facebook and YouTube at Kweliworks. That's KWELIWORKS. Monthly every first Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. This show is powered by Kweliworks Empowerment Broadcast Network.
Hello, my name is Len, and our very special guest coming up now is Ruby Mabry. She's CEO of 2 mental health facilities. She's an advocate for mental illness, the voice of the voiceless. She's an international best-selling author, host and producer of Let's Talk About It, the Candid Conversation show, which I listened to last night and I was blown away. She's the face of the Orlando Urban Film Festival, which is coming up, and she's an advocate for mental illness surviving. Welcome, Ruby.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, before we get into the interview, Ruby, let's remind the audience that, as before, this following episode includes adult-related content that may not be suitable for children. Viewers' discretion is advised. Ruby, you have said that, quote, "You can't heal, but you can't reveal." Please explain how that relates to what you have seen, discovered, or experienced in relationship to mental illness.
I truly believe that. I personally spent 37 years myself wearing a mask, and I feel that when we hurt, we need healing. And the only way to heal is we have to acknowledge what pains us. So the light actually came on for me after my mother passed, and I just felt lost. I felt hopeless. I was depressed. I just didn't want to be here anymore. So I basically sat for years torturing myself. I watched the funeral DVD every single day and cried every time I watched it. I talked to her, looked at her pictures and talked to her. It, it was just so much that I was going through. I just felt nobody wanted me to be here. And I just took a long pause, basically. I went nowhere for 2 years, sat in a state of depression. I just went to my job, to the store, and back home. And it took a toll on me. It really took a toll on me. And at one point, I decided that I just didn't want to be here anymore. And you hear this a lot. It's not that you really don't want to be here. It's just that the pain is so intense. It's so intense that you just don't want to be here. And that's exactly how.
So, Ruby, many people are very close to their parents, especially to the mother.
Mhm.
What was it about your relationship with your mother that was so deep and so close that uh, the after effects of her death have haunted you?
She's just, I just had wonderful parents. My mother was just everything. My mother was a paraplegic. She was paralyzed from the waist down. You would never know it because she did everything any other mother would do. And when we came home from school, we had our dinner made. Everything was done. Clothes were ironed, house clean. She did everything. And she was basically my confidant. She was my best friend. We have secrets among each other that I will carry with me for the rest of my life. And after my father passed, basically, I took care of her. So that's how we became even closer. My father passed. That's when the actual journey began. And he passed in 94. And my mother had to come live with us because she couldn't obviously care for herself. So she moved in with me and my family and traveled with the military. And she's lived with me for 17 years until, unfortunately, 1 month, the doctor stated that she has leukemia. And then the following month, she passed away. And that totally crushed me. It crushed my soul because it happened so quickly.
So I think maybe not right this moment, but throughout the program, we're going to want to know, for people who have such a deep and loving relationship with their mother, how can they cope with it in a way that hopefully can avoid it having a devastating effect on them that lasts. But now I want to go back to your book, Moments of Inspiration.
Mm-hmm.
You said it's intended for self-exploration. Why in your life have you found that to be important? And how does it relate to issues of identity, self-exploration? What's that about?
I feel that self-exploration is necessary. It helps us take a closer look and deeper into our thoughts. It helps also with confidence. It helps with self-esteem. It helps us to recognize what it is that the actual things that we need to do. Like myself, I didn't know certain things that I needed to do until I sought help. Certain things that, like, I cripple myself with intrusive negative thoughts. Every single day I have those negative thoughts that keep coming at me every single day. So I had to learn how to not only manage that, but learn how to show emotion, because that's something that I lack as well. I'm so used to being strong. I've always been told that as a child. You're so strong. You're the strongest kid, in the family. And so I never cried. They never saw me cry as a child, which is weird. And so, other than a baby. And so it helps me learn more about how to show emotion and builds up my self-esteem and just help me know what I need to work on.
Well, I hear you, because as a therapist, I find when I ask a person a lot of times, how do you feel? They tell me what they think. They're totally out of touch with the emotions. Going back to the self, on the walls of the great monuments in ancient Kemet, Egypt, it says, man, know thyself.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if you found in your practice what I know I've found, and that is people are sometimes confused about the ego mind person self and their essence, their soul, their spirit. Have you run into anything like that?
I'm not sure if I understand the question. I'm sorry. I process things different.
Yeah, well, in other words, we're not our bodies. I mean, we are use the bodies. We
Right.
have a spiritual dimension. Does that play a role at all in self-exploration?
I feel that it does. I have a strong faith base. And even though I hate to say it, during the time that my mom passed, I just completely stopped praying because I just didn't understand why God took her away so soon without notice, giving us heads up, which who gets heads up when somebody's passing away? You know, I was so frustrated, but that praying, listening to music, going to church, that helped me. My faith, I had to go back to my faith in order to get my bearings.
All right. So people to live on purpose. How has living a purpose-driven life contributed to your success in healing and helping you to, not really go deeply into the quagmire of what we call suicide?
Mm. Well, I think everyone should live on purpose. I think everyone should be intentional about living on purpose. I hate that my parents left without living on purpose themselves. Their whole focus was just taking care of family. And so after their passing, I realized that I had to step out of my comfort zone and, share my gifts with the world, because you never know whose life that I'm impacting, basically. And the transformation that has taken place within me within the last few years, I have to admit, has just been amazing. I'm not saying that all days are good days. There's some days that are very dark for me because, as I stated, I do have negative thoughts that come in and out. But my grief, my pain, my hopelessness, it actually led to a newfound passion with my show, and opening up, different hearts and minds to talk about it. And that's what we love to say. Let's talk about it, because the more you talk about it, the more healing that can occur.
Well, you just segued right into my next question, which is the fact that you've advocated, let's talk about it. Interestingly, neuron scientists have related talk therapy, which is not just psychologists and psychotherapists talking. They relate that to healing and growing new neuron paths in the brain. So even scientifically, talk therapy seems to be effective. How much has talk therapy or talking played a role in your moment of truth or your mindset transformation about suicide?
Absolutely played a huge role, because this right here is, I'm having a panic attack now. This right here is a lot for me because I'm not a talker. I internalize everything and I just stay quiet. And that's due to the different mental health disorders that I currently have. But a lot of people think that just because you have a mental health issue, you're crazy, you're selfish, you're defective. But that's the mentality that keeps people like me not speaking up. It's that type of mentality that keeps us quiet because of the stigma that's associated with it. So when I started talking, that's when I literally started getting better. And everyone says they see a difference. And I'm so proud of myself. I have to give myself a pat on the back, because just doing this is healing for me. Doing the show every week is healing for me because I'm not a talker. So it did help.
Thank you so much. What I really do get from listening to you, one of the deepest things I get is that as important as family is, your faith and your purpose is so very important. Then actually you can be even a better service to your family and to your friends and to your community. And maybe you can avoid, people in the future who you deal with can avoid the pitfall of going down that road. So thank you so very much for sharing.
You're welcome.
We appreciate it. Okay, in our next section, we're going to highlight a Dr. Maxine Ruddock. She'll be with us physically on the show in our third in this series, but we will have a couple of video clips of her responses to some questions, which will help us to think more clinically about this problem of suicide. Dr. Maxine Ruddock, we call her Dr. Max. She's a clinical psychologist, a life coach, founder of Comprehensive Psychological and Assessment Services, CPAS. She's a self empowerment speaker and lecturer. She's founder of Sisters of the Spirit, and she's the host of her podcast, Her Story. So, like I said, she'll be live with us in the third segment of the series on mental health and suicide. But now let's just get a little taste of the expertise she's bringing to the table. We asked the doctor about the biggest challenges facing mental health professionals and clients. She talked about how some amazingly competent professional mental health workers are being devalued and therefore leaving the field.
So many mental health providers are feeling like they're burnt out from the process, and the field is losing amazing providers by the drove, simply because, number one, society continues to devalue the aspect of mental health and the people who work so hard to provide effective mental health care.
Okay, that has to do with one of the elephants in the room regarding mental health and how it is stigmatized, especially in African American and Caribbean communities. Dr. Max will tell us a little bit about that.
There is a cultural aspect that just runs through not just Black Americans, but also Caribbeans, where your business is your business. So you're not necessarily supposed to take your information out. Even when you are being mistreated, abused, that's still considered the family business. So when you go out and you seek help, it's almost a betrayal of the culture and a betrayal of the family. So that's a huge barrier to people, Black Americans and Caribbean. So it's the same because, we're pretty much from the diaspora. But, that tradition of the family's business is supposed to stay almost like Vegas. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. So that those family seekers, that generation of tolerating abuse, tolerating bad treatment, but not letting outsiders know, because then you've actually aligned against the family, is really a big prohibitor to Black Americans and Caribbean seeking mental health care. But not only that, traditionally, we Black Americans and Caribbeans tend to put a lot of power in the power of prayer. So we're supposed to take it to God, right? You're not supposed to take it outside, because then that almost feels as if you don't have enough faith. So, you'll go to the pastors, you'll go to the churches. They sometimes stand in the way of mental health care, because it's almost as if they're saying the two cannot live in harmony. You cannot be a person of faith and then also go and talk to the counselor. You'll hear at times, even in the church setting, someone going and being ridiculed, and you're paying your money and you really should be going to Jesus. This is who it is. But let me tell you, inside that church, the reason so many people are there is the pain is so much, and they're doing everything to hold on. And there is a space where your faith and mental health care can actually be hand in hand, and you can actually use them both to enhance each other. But unfortunately, currently, it still stands that those two things tend to be in conflict.
We also asked Dr. Max about the telltale signs to look out for regarding mental health issues, especially regarding suicide. What's the importance of closely monitoring loved ones when they are acting out of character? She emphasized creating relationships, and she urged people to seek professional help.
Well, one of the signs that you're going to see is when that person is acting completely out of character. So let's say, for example, someone tends to be typically happy, outgoing, and then you start to see that person withdrawing. They're becoming much more quiet. They're sleeping a lot. They're not interested in a lot of things that they were normally interested in. That's usually some of the signs that we look for, that someone is struggling with something internally. And that's, if you're looking at depression, if you're looking at anxiety, it might be that person becomes very anxious, very irritable. They don't have a lot of patience with just even the smallest things. So one of the things to do is to kind of pay attention to differences that you see. Another thing I would encourage people to do is to sit and talk with that person. Kind of ask them what's going on. If I'm noticing something and I can't really tell if you're on the edge, but sitting down and having real and meaningful and consistent conversations with people can actually give you a clue that there's something going on with that person and that they might be crying out for help, even if the cry is a silent cry, because we don't always do it verbally. One of the things that I always tell loved ones is this: create that relationship with people. If you see someone and they're acting in some way that makes you kind of wonder, just create a relationship and leave a space for that person, and also then encourage that person to seek relationships with other people. If they don't have the energy to do that, then find some supports for them and have those people connect to them. But the more varied supports that people have, the better protection it is, because people are then looking at that individual from varied perspectives, and they will be able to see much more readily if something is wrong, because it's not just one person that's missing something. Other people will also be seeing that. One of the other things I always encourage people to do, if you find that you have a loved one that's struggling, please encourage that person to seek professional help. Oftentimes we think that simply talking to someone is enough, but there are times when you're out of your depth, and a trained professional is going to listen in a much deeper manner than someone who's not trained. And they're also going to have a lot more techniques and a lot of more resources that they can readily connect that person to.
Okay, so the final bit of information that we want to share with you from Dr. Max. You may have noticed on her video the words "be bold, be true, be kind, and be you." And it seems like I'm hearing that the you that I am, that people say I am, is part of the problem. So we want to find out what this means. Dr. Max talks about the fact that you can tell someone is not being themselves when they seem hopeless and dissatisfied with their lives, or depressed about not being perfect, and they tend to ignore their unique God-given strengths.
Well, that's hopelessness. And so someone who's experiencing a sense of hopelessness is not going to experience anything that's positively affirming about them. But in terms of the statement of "be you," many times the root of some of the non-genetic chemical imbalances of mental illness begins with people being very dissatisfied with who they are. They're looking at other people and thinking they're fine, they're perfect, everything is going okay in their life. And sometimes that's far from the truth. But that perspective, that misconception can lead people to begin to become anxious in the presence of another person, because they begin to have in their own mind conversations that saying that person is fine and I'm not. That person never makes mistakes, but I do. That person's always succeeding, I'm always losing. That outlook can then lead to more anxiety, can lead to depression, and then that can morph into something much more serious. So one of the things I encourage people is this: be content with being perfectly imperfect. That's who you are. So you're not going to be good at everything. You're not going to be bad at everything. Show up as the person that God created you to be, because there is a reason and a purpose for you. And until you accept that as truth and shine in that light, and that can simply be, I'm the person that doesn't sing the best because I'm actually the person that can hold the microphone the best. I mean, to understand that there's so many amazing strengths in all of us, and it's important for us to maximize our strengths and to simply be ourselves and not be so concerned with competing with the people that's outside of ourselves. So that particular statement of "be you" is very important. That's one of the things that I work on with my patients, is in terms of them understanding the unique gift that that person is to the world, and to walk within that particular gift.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Max. That's just a taste of what she's going to bring to us in the third of the series, this series of about suicide. If you want to get in touch with her immediately, you can go to www.cpascounseling.com, or you can call 352-508, or you can email Dr. Max at I guess you can Instagram her or Facebook her, Dr. Max, or at Design Your Max Life. Thank you. So, we just heard two powerful stories from Dawn and Ruby about thoughts of suicide and mental health. We also got a better understanding of mental illness from Dr. Max. We want to remind our audience that if you or someone may be having thoughts or want to commit suicide, please share this show with them.
Yes, Lenny, I definitely agree. Those were two powerful stories, and I truly admire the courage and strength for them sharing. Join us again next week for part 2, entitled Suicide, To the Edge and Back, The Choice to Live. In this episode, you will hear stories of another 2 individuals who actually attempted suicide, lived, and changed the course of their life and others. Tune in next Thursday, May 9th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on Caribbean Rhythms Network, online at crrfm.com. Again, please don't forget to like and subscribe on our YouTube channel at Glow 365 TV shows to watch all our current and previous shows. Let's help them make the choice to live. Also, please check out the February, March, April 2023 issue of KU Magazine, featuring Ronise Weaver, who is a registered dietitian, creator of the original Soul Food Pyramid and the Soul Food Plate, a pioneer, trailblazer, and much more. A must-read story of an amazing woman. Visit online at kuomagazine.com. That's kuomagazine.com. I'm also one of the executive producers of Caribbean Straight Talk Show, hosted by Miss Lima Dunbar. That's coming up next right here. So don't go anywhere. Stay locked and stay tuned in. I would like to thank 2 of my amazing esteemed co-hosts, Mr. Leonard Birch and Coach Sophie G. Our special guest, Coach Dawn Hewitt, Mrs. Ruby Mayberry, and Dr. Max. Allow me to leave you with this quote. For darkness restores what the light cannot repair, which means that the light can repair things in the material world, but that there are limitations of what kind of fixing. Medicine, for instance, can heal in the light, but if the spirit isn't well, there is no life. By Joseph Brodsky. Remember, there is hope. There is help to get to a place of mental wellness, because you're not alone. I'm Coach Mia, coming to you from Ocoee, Florida. Thank you all for tuning in and watching The Mia Allman Show on Glow 365 TV and on Caribbean Rhythms Radio. Until next time, stay safe and well and continue to find your glow, which equals our greater level of wellness within the mind, body, and soul.